What's up, guys? It's Adam here, and I'm doing a little bit of a response video to DCSG81. His video on how to pose your Spider-Man in dynamic style. That's the exact title. If you want to look it up, and I'll also link it in the description. So if you do want to check it out, feel free to. So he posted this video, and I commented on his Instagram post promoting the video that he should probably work on his posing a little bit more, like everyone should. No matter what, even if you think you're the best at posing, you still need to work on your posing. So in this video, I'm not only going to be sort of, not exactly teaching, but just giving you ideas on how to pose figures dynamically and more naturally. So not just with dynamic poses, but also you can see these three back here, Daredevil, Iron Man, and Kamen Rider Skull. They aren't really in any sort of dynamic poses, but their poses, for the most part, look pretty natural. So not only am I teaching you the dynamic poses, but also more natural poses. So I think we're gonna start off with this guy right here, Spider-Man. I just got this guy in yesterday, so it's gonna be new experiences for me too. Let's go. Alright, so you can see right here he's in a pretty boring, just vanilla standing pose. So what I'm thinking is we're going to do the pose that I've noticed Tom Holland does a lot, and that's where he sort of like stands back and thwips his webs out. So what I like to do first is I like to figure out where the balance points are going to be. So he likes to sort of lean back like that and then shoot the web out. So let's see. Alright, so you can see there, I pretty much have his balance. Well, of course I say that, and then he falls as soon as I change the angle he's standing. So you can see there, I have the balance down. You just need to keep working at the legs until you find right where he balances perfectly. It's gonna be at least, I don't know, especially for a pose like this where he's supposed to be leaning to one side. It's going to be a little harder. It's not going to be immediate. You're not just going to set the figure down and then boom, he's going to be in the pose. But it's not exactly hard either. You just got to find the balance right. And also, one thing I personally, and I learned this from Amazing photographer and poser. He said in, I can't remember which live stream, it was years ago, but he said that if you're having trouble posing, figure out what poses your own body can do, and try and replicate those poses with the figure. So that's one thing that really helped me when I was still struggling with posing. So anyways, now that we've got the balance, I want to angle his arm so it looks like he's shooting up. And of course, it will take a little bit because any little adjustment you do might mess up the balance. So you got to be careful with that and just work through it and find the balance again. So I got pretty lucky, and I didn't have to change his balance too much. But you can see there that is pretty much the pose that I was going for, where it looks like he's shooting. He's shooting up. It looks like he's shooting up. It looks like he's shooting his webs upwards at a building, or like in Far From Home, he did this pose specifically when the water elemental first appeared. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You can see it's not 100%, but it's still decent. And it all comes down to angles as well, especially with photography. So that's pretty much it for this pose. Let's move on to Nightcrawler. Alright, so here's Nightcrawler in just a vanilla pose. So what I'm thinking of doing for Nightcrawler is his signature, his power, his mutant ability to teleport. So I'm gonna make it look like he's just teleported back into wherever, or back to whoever he's fighting. So obviously this is gonna be a little difficult, especially with what I said before, to see if you yourself can do this pose. But again, there's a bunch of references with, the comics and stuff like that. Hundreds of references where he's teleporting. But this one's just off the top of my mind. This isn't like specific to any artist's rendition or whatever. So what I'm thinking is we have the arms back first, with a little bit of a bend in the elbow, just to make it look like he's jumping body first. Have him bent over all the way, head looking up all the way, and his legs bent like that. I'm not sure. I guess just put the tail down like that. But actually no, I think the tail looks better up. And really the thing is, you just gotta work it, especially like the arms. Those are one of the things that you can see what looks natural in your own arm. Obviously you don't have unless you do have 3 fingers, then but this isn't perfect. Actually, I think it would look better if I did that and just curled his legs back up. So yeah, that looks even better. Looks like he's jumping down from a not a portal, he's just teleported back in. I don't have a stand to put him up, but if I did, that would look pretty good. At least I think so. He's out of focus too. Alright, so this one's gonna be a little bit more difficult, because you don't really see Iron Man in many dynamic poses. And also, people don't really think of Iron Man as a very dynamic character, but with the good thing about SH Figure Arts is they have all the articulation you could ever need in an Iron Man figure on the Iron Man figures they make. So that allows for a lot more mobility than, say, like a Hot Toys, which obviously they aren't made to be highly articulated figures, but I'm just saying it's more articulation than you would find in, here's a better example, in Marvel Legends. That would be a better example, because it's sort of the same scale, 1/12. Anyways, so what I'm thinking is we're gonna have Iron Man sort of crouching and turning around like he's firing this hand to someone that's behind him. So again, just like Spider-Man, I want to find the balance first. This is just the way I do it. Again, you can do whichever way you want. If you want to pose him first and then put him down and find the balance, do whatever. Do whatever you're comfortable with. But for me, I'm thinking, yeah, so boom. It's really easy to find the balance with, especially SH Figuarts Iron Man figures, because they have die-cast feet. So it's easier to find their foot heavy, so it's easier to balance. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put the arm straight out as if he's firing his repulsors, and have this arm like this, because that's something you actually do see Iron Man in the MCU do a lot, is turn both hands around. And I mean, that one's kind of straightforward. It looks like he's firing backwards. And like, boom, already. Just angle your camera a little bit and it already looks great. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for Iron Man. Pretty simple. Still looks very good in pictures, very dynamic. Especially when you fuck up the feet. Especially when you combine it with a good angle. It's just simple and effective, and it'll just make your picture that much better. Because what I really worry about first with pictures is the posing. Of course, lighting and the setting and the diorama and whatever is important. But you can have all of those things and then have a terrible, terrible pose, and it'll just mess up the entire picture. So that's why I think posing is key in a lot of photography, is toy photography. Alright, so I know this one isn't going to be very relatable, because a lot of people don't, well, there are a lot of people that do collect Kamen Rider and pose them, but most don't really know that much about Kamen Rider. So, this isn't specific to Kamen Rider, but it will help you with any characters that are more suave and more like, well, I guess hard-boiled. They're like detective films, you know, like noir films. Yeah, anyways. The word is escaping me. I cannot for the life of me remember. But anyways, this doesn't only relate to Kamen Rider. So what I'm thinking is basically the same pose I had when I recorded the intro, where it looks like he's just transformed. That's usually the pose he does when he first transforms. Anyways, where he's holding his hat and has his gun in his other hand, and has his scarf blowing in the wind. And he has a very chilled he has a very suave pose, very sort of cocky pose. Anyways, so I think we're pretty much just gonna keep this arm here. And one thing with the legs, if usually with like there goes his hat. Anyways, what I'm thinking is have one leg back, sort of extended, then one leg sort of forward to give him that leaning look. So it looks like he's kind of leaning, have his legs sort of spread out, and then have his head looking down as much as you can. Make sure his balance is on point. Have his scarf blowing in the wind majestically. And then this is the hardest part with especially this figure. You want to have the hat brim sort of covering his face, but then you also need to have his hand that holds the hat holding the hat and make that look natural while also covering the face. So you just gotta keep working at it. Even if the hat moves, you just gotta put it back into place. Find what looks the most natural. It's not gonna take 2 seconds, but it's not gonna take a long time either. Especially when the figure still has stiff joints. And I think, yeah, that looks good right there. And boom, there we have it. And now for a little bit more of a difficult pose to pull off. So this is a Mezco Netflix Daredevil. And it's, at least for me, Mezcos are not the easiest things to pose because the fabric limits the articulation, and the articulation isn't as dynamic as, say, an SH Figuarts or a Mafex. But it does have pretty much the same exact points of articulation underneath the cloth. But obviously, like I said before, the cloth restricts the movement. So what I'm going to try and accomplish here is just a normal vanilla standing pose that is seen a lot in the Daredevil show. But it's not just like he's standing there like he is now. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just have him in a very stiff pose like this, and it won't look natural, and it ruins the picture, really. So what I'm gonna do is just show you how just moving these joints a little tiny bit, putting just a sprinkle more effort into a standing pose can just improve everything about your picture. Alright, so obviously just standing there, I guess it looks okay, but we can improve it. So one thing that you notice a lot in the show is that he often stands with his legs spread at very least shoulder width apart. So if you have him just standing there like that, it's gonna look a little stiff. So at least shoulders length apart, knees bent a little bit. His arms, this is pretty much as far as they can go down, but I think that'll be pretty good for this example. Another thing is a very, very, very small detail, but his pose in the show, usually, he has his batons sort of facing up, like he's gripping them as hard as possible. And just a slight tilt down of the head, and boom, it just looks 100% better than it did before in that stiff standing pose. And it's something that a lot of people don't realize how much better this is compared to the standing just vanilla pose I had before. Of course, this is vanilla, but not stiff. This is very natural. It's a natural stance. It looks like how he stands in the show. So, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover. I don't want to make this video too long, but I wanted to have enough variety in figures and different poses. So really, to close out this video, I just want to say, I'm not saying that I'm the best action figure poser or whatever. I am just, I want to show that posing doesn't take a lot of effort, but it requires a lot of dedication. You just gotta keep practicing, keep doing more natural poses, and yeah, it'll take a while to get the hang of, but you will eventually get it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and make sure to practice your posing.